Hey there, how's it going? It's Rogue. I hope that you're having a wonderful day, no matter when it is that you're watching this. As the title of the video might suggest, I wanted to put together something as like a basic guide for figuring out how you can put together different builds and like really bring all the different elements of build crafting together, especially if like you're either returning or just getting into the game, because I know that it can be confusing. So before we get started, there is a prerequisite to unlocking everything in build crafting, and that would be with your guardian ranks. I do believe that once you hit rank 5, so basically once you've completed the tutorial bit of the game, that is like your okay, I have all the mods, um, and like everything available, but once you hit rank 7, that's when you truly have every aspect of your build crafting unlocked. And rank 7 is not hard to get. Um, and I'm sure many of you are aware how the Guardian ranks work. So, yeah, just once you hit rank 7, you should have everything available to you. Right. Now, getting into what it actually is. When I'm thinking of build crafting, I'm generally saying to myself, okay, I have this problem or obstacle in the game, and how do I overcome it? How do I deal with it? So, what those problems might be is like a damage phase, for example, or my survivability is lacking. There are champions I need to deal with. Maybe I'm on ad clear, and we like really need that good ad clear. So, to get a start on this, you got to think about well, how do you want to deal with this? So, typically, you can either start broad or narrow. Broad being like, okay, I want to use this subclass specifically to deal with it. And more narrow, you can have like a specific exotic in mind, whether that's a weapon or a piece of armor. Now, once you have that in mind, then you can supplement the rest of your build around that thing just to make it easier to figure stuff out. Like, how does everything work together with this main thing that I chose? So, that being said, I'll just give an example. If I want to do some damage, like during a damage phase for a boss in a raid, I don't want to have to swap my weapons a lot, and I still want to have like a good bit of damage, but also decent neutral play. So, like, I won't have a problem surviving or doing the mechanics or helping out teammates when need be. I'll think to myself, okay, something I can just stand there and shoot. I know, 1,000 voices. It's a good weapon, it scorches, and the scorches stack to ignite something, and that's basically like a big explosion. Don't have to swap anything, it doesn't have a catalyst, so I don't have to grind for that. I just stand there, shoot. So I'm like, alright, cool, have that in mind. Now, thinking about what synergizes with that for subclasses. There's really only two that like synergize well because this is a solar um, heavy weapon. So I think okay, solar subclass obviously, and then of course prismatic kind of goes with everything. But I'm gonna really focus in on solar. Specifically, I want Ember of Ashes. And this just kind of came to my head. I was like, okay, if I get these extra scorch stacks, that means I get more ignitions, more explosions, more damage. And from there, I can choose whatever other fragments I'd want. You know, maybe pick one or two that deal with ignitions, and then one or two that deal with survivability. Um, and then on top of that, I figured, you know what? I'm going to throw on this Hellion aspect just to get some extra scorch stacks, extra explosion damage. If I have this out for the boss, or if I need to, I can just throw this down. I'll already be in like a healing rift, just something else to help me deal with a bunch of ads if need be. Um, okay, so now that I've got that figured out, I think, okay, there's a ton of exotic armor pieces in the game. What would best work with 1K? Or like what would at least like possibly be an idea for what I want to do? And I figured, you know what? Dawn Chorus here. My Scorch gets extra damage, and when I scorch something, I get extra melee energy. So with this, especially going back here paired with this fragment, whenever I scorch something, I'm getting both melee and rift energy back. So on top of that, my Scorch does more damage. I'm not really utilizing the the Daybreak, but the rest of this, you know, pretty good. Um, so figured, all right, have the main things down right now. Getting more into the niche things, like how can I boost that damage just a little bit more? This is where you gotta explore the different like armor mods that go into this to really figure out what gives me more damage, what allows me to reload faster, to allow me to constantly do damage and don't have to wait on reloading, what will protect me, that sort of stuff. So generally speaking, since this is a heavy fusion rifle, I'll think to myself, okay, if that's a heavy weapon, obviously I'm going to need heavy ammo, especially if it might get tight in some encounters. So heavy ammo finder here on the helmet, that should be good. On top of that, some reserve mods might be nice for just increasing how much I have, and then solar scavenger just so that I pick up more. So cool. I'm going to have a lot of ammo for this gun, supposedly, and that's not even taking into account if my teammates are making anything for me as well. Now on top of that, looking into the like last bit of damage I could squeeze out, I go to the legs, think, okay, I'm going to go down here, find the surge mods, and the surge mods give stackable bonuses to your damage for a specific weapon type. Now this isn't like all of your solar stuff does more damage, so like your melee will not do more. This is just your weapons, but that is what I'm going to be using mainly. So I figured, all right, I'll throw on a solar weapon surge. Why not? Get that 10% extra bonus from one. And these do stack, by the way. So if you threw on like 2 of these, it would do exponentially more damage. However, so like the first one solar mod would allow you to do 10%. 2 would only allow you to do about 17%, not 20%. And then 3 would allow you to do, I believe it's like 22% more damage. So they get a little bit less each mod you throw on in terms of like the individual boost it does to your damage, but collectively it does really help. Like you will notice who has the surge mod on and who does not. Now granted, if you just like throw one on, that's okay. Recuperation as well. This is a good mod to have just for the survivability aspect. You're constantly going to be picking up orbs in one way or another. So especially like if you notice that you're low health, there's an orb just like a couple feet away. You can run over to that and then boom, good as new, back in the fight. Going back to the idea of spending more time shooting on the arms here, I'd think, okay, need to reload my weapon obviously from time to time, so I'll throw on this reloader. On top of that, the loader should also help my Luna's Howl. Now in PvE, you don't really need so much like targeting and stuff, because usually the enemies are either in your face or they're big enough that you don't need the targeting. Targeting and like swap mods you can use, of course, but those are typically going to be more like your PvP side of things. So yeah, going along with the Luna's Howl here, I figured, you know what, it's got infinite ammo because it's a primary weapon, heal clip, so whenever I get a kill it heals me, and then incandescent for further ad clear, and then depending on what else I want to do, I can either throw on the call, lost signal, maybe even supremacy. So just really figuring out what works together, what you need to bring so that you can deal with whatever you need to deal with. Now, when build crafting, it is good to try to spec into just a couple of different things. You can, of course, try to just do as much as you can in terms of your build, but generally, whenever you try spreading yourself out, so like if you try to do a little bit of damage phase and then do a little bit of survivability and then have champions and ad clears stacked onto it, like if you're really trying to spec into all of those, you're gonna find that yeah, you might be able to do, you know, decent at all those things, but it's not going to be maximized. So the more you maximize your build crafting into like damage, then the more damage you're going to do. The more you spec yourself into ad clearing, the better ad clear you're going to have. Or like survivability, that sort of stuff. You can mix and match. Like you can, you know, of course, blend your subclass together well. This is your build, of course, and it's going to be tailored to you and your playstyle. So it's just something to keep in mind. Again, the whole idea of this is finding synergy. What things work together. Generally, that deals with damage types. So as you see on like all of these armor pieces, I've got solar stuff. Subclass, solar. Hand cannon, solar. Fusion rifle, solar. And the reason for that is, well, when it comes to putting stuff on your armor pieces, you get the most bang for your buck with harmonic. And harmonic mods basically say whatever your equipped subclass is, or your equipped super, I believe it is now, with prismatic, that is what your, like, weapons of those type cost less energy in your mods. So like this one, the harmonic for solar, only costs 1 because I'm using a solar subclass. So it only costs 1 energy here. If I were to try to use just a solar siphon, it would cost 3. So it would allow you to just use more and different mods. And a lot of the mods, if you stack them, so like you put two of them together, they give you a bigger effect, like I mentioned with the surge mods. It's going to be like slightly less each mod you put on, but it is still worth it. So like if I have 2 of these harmonic siphons on, by the way, siphon mods, incredibly good. Whatever your main like ad clear weapon is, definitely try to throw on at least 1 of these just so that you can create some orbs, because orbs are used for everything. Whether that's, you know, the recuperation stuff, your surge mods, your different ability mods that like boost your ability stats. Pretty much everything deals with orbs, plus it gives you super energy, which, you know, can't go wrong there. Now, in terms of stats, when it comes to these stats here, a good place to be is double 100. You don't like it's just a decent place to be. You don't need to go crazy, especially if you're a casual player. If you can only get single 100, don't worry. Honestly, just dump it all into resilience, because resilience, this is your health pool, and the more you can stay alive, the more you get to play the game. Like, it's the harder stuff that you're able to tank. After you get resilience maxed out, then you can look into something else, depending on what kind of playstyle you want to have. So most of the time, I'll see like 100 resil and then 100 discipline, because every class can benefit from a grenade. You know, of course, if you want to do more of like a super thing, you can spec more into intellect or more melee, spec more into strength. And the way that you do that is over here on your ghost. You inspect your ghost. In this column here, you want to make sure you have an armor mod on for whatever it is that you want to be like your biggest stat in your armor pieces. Throw that on, And then as you complete activities, it's more likely that that stat is going to be really big, so that that one's focused, and then you can essentially gamble to find what other stats work well together. The seasonal vendors, so this season it's going to be failsafe. I'm not sure what the next season is, obviously, but usually the helm vendors, they give decent stat armor. You're going to be looking for any like high stat, meaning like 66 or above, with it being spiky in whatever it is that you want. So like this is a good example here. Like the resilience absolutely spiked out, 41. And it's also got decent discipline and okay intellect, so I'm like, alright, yeah, sure, I'm definitely using this. Your bonds, or rather your class items, because this is not just specific to Warlock. Yeah, for your class items, whatever it is that you want, I definitely just put the little booster in that one thing if you need it. Of course, masterworking stuff does help. And for those of you that don't know, masterworking is upgrading this to the maximum level. It does cost a bit, and I'm pretty sure as you get to the 8, 9, and 10 levels for your armor, it does cost you a couple of enhancement prisms, and I think they're called enhancement shards. It's the white golf balls, ascendant shards. These, yes. Okay. Now, in terms of the mods, again, just solar or whatever your siphon mod is up here on your helmet. Definitely make sure you have at least one of those on. Then resist mods here, you cannot go wrong with them, especially concussive dampener, specifically for PvP, or rather PvE. Sorry. There's so much stuff in the game that does area of effect damage, and this just helps you tank it all. Generally, I find myself dying most to void damage, so I'll try to throw one of those on unless I just don't have the the space for it, which case, harmonic, can't go wrong with that. One is just one. One energy. Alright, for your bond, you definitely will likely want one time dilation. Time dilation increases the amount of time that you can have a surge mod active. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that so if you do not have any surge mods, which sometimes that'll happen, and none of these kinds of mods, basically any of the blue kind that increase a stat or ability, if you don't have any of those, you do not need time dilation. It will serve no purpose. Generally, you just need one, because at one, if you have 3 full stacks of armor charges, which you'll be able to see that buff in game on the left side of your screen, it'll have 3 little ticks. You'll have 45 seconds of increased damage, and that's assuming that during a damage phase, for example, someone doesn't cast their super and you don't just automatically snatch that orb up, or during just general gameplay, you don't randomly pick up an orb. Cool. In terms of artifact, the artifact has a ton of great mods in it, especially like the champion mods. Those are necessary for higher end content, unless you want to use the intrinsics on a weapon. So like some weapons just automatically deal with barrier champions. These things should not make or break a build, though. They're definitely good supplements to it, but you really shouldn't be saying, oh man, I really just need to build my build around press the advantage, unless you just want to be like an absolute goober, or like you're doing a challenge for this. But like, these things are nice, don't get me wrong. If you want to have like a solar or prismatic build that you're running, and then you realize, oh, by the way, this thing just gives me radiant, I don't need stuff that really focuses on giving me radiant. Then it's just a nice little focus on it. Now, those are the general basics. So I'll just give a couple other examples of like what might be a good build, or like how to figure out what you might need to do. So like with this build, for example, my main focus was ad clear, and specifically like just going through a GM flawlessly, a Grandmaster Nightfall. So at the time last season, Thorn was pretty powerful, and on top of that, Necrotic Grips pairing with it, you know, they've got that good synergy because this is a weapon of sorrow. Necrotic Grips buff weapons of sorrow. On top of that, they both deal poison damage to things, so that mixed with a whole bunch of unraveling and suspend from strand really just made it so that whatever I was shooting, whatever I was killing, getting poisoned, getting suspended, getting unraveled, just stacking all this stuff together to make sure that whatever it is that I was fighting was going to die. But this isn't necessarily the strongest when it comes to like a damage phase. That being said, because this is an ad clear build, I still decided to throw on some surge mods. Because since I'm practically only using Thorn with this build, I wanted to buff Thorn even more. So since it's a kinetic weapon, I gave it 2 kinetic surge mods. And with that, it's doing more damage. I'm creating a bunch of orbs with it, still getting heavy ammo in case I need that. Got a loader on just because I want to spend as much time, shooting as possible. And then when it comes to these other weapons, I figured I might as well throw on a blinding GL. A blinding GL is anything that has a disorienting nade on it. Generally, these things are amazing to have. It doesn't apply the blind effect, but it staggers the enemies so that like they're not shooting at you and they look like they're blinded temporarily. It's just in the past they were called blinding nades instead of disorienting nades. So anything that has disorienting, I figured, alright, I have a water flight, let me throw that on. And then can't go wrong with an edge transit or like an eager edge sword for movement. At the same time, if I was like, okay, my team really needs ammo, and we're in a raid, we're fighting a boss, and we just can't quite get the last bit of damage because everyone runs out of ammo, I'd think, okay, Cenotaph Mask generates a lot of ammo. My whole role then is going to be support, so I would just really lean into that support aspect of generating ammo with Cenotaph, which, for those of you that don't know, this is a really good exotic for warlocks. I figured, alright, trace rifles. Automatically reloads them from reserves and marks targets that poop out ammo whenever they die. So with that, I figured, alright, Divinity, might as well debuff whatever it is we're shooting. On top of that, I can have overload champions if that's the case. So just giving my teammates that extra oomph for damage. Since this is going to be like my main thing that I'm using during damage, I throw on a machine gun just for general play, because I'm not going to be using this to try to kill ads, especially because I'm going to be trying to conserve ammo as much as possible until I'm marking targets or the boss. So I figured, you know what, throw on a machine gun. It's also arc, so over here, whenever I get arc reserves, arc scavenger, whenever I pick up any sort of ammo that is arc, both these weapons get increased ammo and increased reserves. So I'm basically trying to figure out how can I put more divinity in my divinity. And then, in case I happen to run out, I throw on Special Finisher, just so that I can finish an enemy. It'll poop out some special bricks for me and my whole team. That way I get some special ammo, they get some special ammo, everyone's happy. And then this this weapon was really just whatever I wanted it to be, because I'm mainly just using these two. Then really leaning into that support aspect, figured I'd go with Well of Radiance, as well as just more support fragments. And that is like the general basics of build crafting. something that I didn't mention is that there's a website called DIM, Destiny Item Manager. It's really good and really useful for like creating and optimizing your builds as well as moving stuff around your characters. So if that's something that might appeal to you, whether it's just like skipping the step of going to orbit or the tower to deal with your vault, like in an activity you can just move items back and forth. You can do that, as well as they have a tab called loadouts. You can go there, then you can go to loadout optimizer, and then from there you can select what exotics you want to use, what stats you want to have based on the armor that you have on your character, and then it'll auto generate a full build for you. From there you can just hit the equip button, and so long as you're in orbit in the game, it'll equip all of the armor sets and all of the mods for you. It's just really simple, cuts out the middleman. You don't have to go fishing around for like all the different best stats between all of your armors. And then from there you can just throw on whatever weapons you want. So that's a good little tool. And then as well as that, you can also import existing loadouts. So like if you find a build on YouTube that you really like, you can go, if they have a link for their build, just copy that, go to the import button on DIM, import the loadout. It'll automatically do it for you based on what you have. Again, it's not gonna like give you items that you don't have. And yeah, it'll definitely something to check out. If you don't have any or all of the fragments, make sure that you pick up the light ones, so Arc Solar Void from Ikora in the tower. They're a little bit costly, they cost Glimmer, but nothing too much. As long as you're playing the game, you should unlock them fairly fast. Strand, you can unlock all of its fragments from Neomuna, which is the Lightfall DLC. Stasis, you can unlock all of these fragments and all of the grenades and everything from the Exo Stranger on Europa. I believe that's the Beyond Light DLC. And then most recently, of course, Prismatic. You can unlock all of these fragments and stuff by playing through the final shape and the little adventures afterwards. So, alright, I hope that this was good and helpful, and that a little bit of an insight into learning stuff. In terms of individual builds, you can definitely just like look stuff up online. There's tons of builds out there for every class, every subclass. So yeah, hope you have a great day.